All right, so we're live right now on YouTube. So basically, I do this live, Sam, just so you know, and then that way it just posts up on there. And I don't have to worry about like uploading it later or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I'm going to share with you just a Microsoft Word screen because that's what we're going to start to use is that. So Cole, you don't get headphones, man?
I know, I just turned it down. I'll go to the forum.
Can you hear Cole?
No, I
What's that?
heard him respond to you, but that was it.
Okay. All right. So we're going to start. I think what we'll do is because I want to streamline the training that we did yesterday, and so understand, Sam, that when I'm doing this, like a lot of times I'm going to be talking to someone that would be watching this later on, so it's going to be a little bit weird for you. So I'll probably ask you questions, ask you if you have any questions or something like that. But most of the time, I'm going to be talking to someone that would be watching this after this is done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't want to, it's going to, if I start talking to, it seems to be you, but in like some weird way, and you're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Then it will get bizarre quick. I was, did you watch any of the draft, Sam? That is to you, not to people watching it later.
The YouTube
draft.
video you sent us yesterday. Oh no, the draft.
Yeah.
Sorry. No. I was just tracking it really. See what the Steelers
Usually I'm
do.
super excited for it too, but this year has been boring. There's been one quarterback pick so far. I think I think one quarterback pick so far. It's crazy. All right, so yesterday we finished up by going through the different window problems with vinyl windows. Okay, so we're gonna do a brief overview of that because I know that you, Sam, have missed the beginning of that. So I'm gonna do a brief overview of that. And then my notes that I take down here, I can also send to you as well through email. So the first thing we talked about yesterday, whenever you were going through the script and rebuttal stuff, was there's four major problems that I'd focus on when it comes to vinyl windows. Now, this by no means means that you should ignore the other problems that exist or the other problems that come up. But there's just four that are super basic and easy to remember that lead to a lot of the problems that exist in vinyl windows. Okay, so I'm going to put them down right now. And it starts out with warping. Warping is the first problem that I think about when it comes to the vinyl windows. And the reason why it's the first problem that I think about when it comes to the vinyl windows is because that's going to occur naturally in every single vinyl window over time. Some might be a little bit quicker than others to have the warping issue, but they're all going to have it at some point, and it's not going to take very long at all before they all have it. So the reason for that is because the vinyl material, it's plastic. As a matter of fact, I actually refer to it as plastic more than I do vinyl once I get out there and start talking to the customer. So the way that when I talk to the customer, the first time I name their windows, I'll say vinyl, just so then they know what I'm talking about. And then every time after that, I'm gonna make sure that I'm saying plastic after that. Okay. And the reason for that is just because plastic is not associated with quality, right? It's not quality. Now, if you look up the definition for polymer degradation on just Wikipedia, even, it's not talking specifically about windows, but that's kind of the point. Is it's not talking about windows. Let me see, polymer degradation. It's not like they made this Wikipedia page just for me to do training. So you can believe in the honesty. Typically, you can't believe in the honesty of Wikipedia all the time, but in this case, you can, because there's no incentive structure for Wikipedia to lie. So it says, in general, the effects of heat, light, air, and water are most significant factors in degradation of plastic polymers. Okay. The major chemical changes are oxidation and chain scission, leading to a reduction in the molecular weight in degree of polymerization of the polymer. These changes affect the physical properties like strength, malleability, melt flow index, appearance, and color. Okay, so issues happen because of heat, light, air, and water. Well, windows are going to get all of those things, right? Your windows are going to be subject to get attacked by every single one of those things. It's not going to be any of those things that your windows don't have. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So Yeah, that's sorry. It's like I'm not used to doing the YouTube and the somebody being on it thing. So I'm gonna keep. Like I said, I'm gonna keep talking to YouTube and keep talking to you. It's gonna be kind of weird.
You can just keep talking to YouTube if it helps you out.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. How about this? Interrupt me if you have a question. Sound good?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So I'll probably still keep talking to you, but at least I'll try. So warping is one of those issues that's caused by the breakdown in the material, the polymer degradation, which is the word that you will never use on the road. Okay, the word that you use on the road is the second thing that I write down here is oxidization, or oxidation rather. Oxidation. I always used to call that oxidization because that sounds like it would be right, but it's not right. I learned the hard way that it's not right. Somebody said to me one time, they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm sure they were being a smart ass too. Like, come on, oxidation, oxidization. You could just let me get away with it. You know what I'm saying? But I'm glad they did it because I would have been doing that still to this day. So oxidation is the name of it. And that's the breakdown of the material. So that's actually what will destroy the windows is the oxidation in the material. And that leads to a couple different problems. The main issue that leads to is powdering of the windows. It'll make it look like it's breaking down. I consider it like the rust or the rotting of a vinyl window. Okay. So it's a breakdown in the plastic in your windows. Okay. So that will show up by discoloration or yellowing. All right. Typically, because most vinyl windows now are white. Almost everyone is white that you run into. So typically it's yellowing. Powder substance on the windows. A lot of people think that it's dirt on their glass, but it's the breakdown of the material. Those are the things that you're gonna notice first when it comes to oxidation. Back to warping too. I just want to put down here. You're gonna notice this most in the middle of the window, in the middle of the sash. Okay. Which I'll go over if you need me to. Again, I'll go over it either way on here, what a sash is in different parts of window in a second. Second, on the bottom of the sash slash sill. Okay, that's where you're going to notice it most. All right, now the third problem that I typically go over with customers is glass impaction. Now that is the warping of the glass, makes the windows look like funhouse mirrors. And the way that I identify that, typically what I try to see, I mean, there's obviously, you can tell some of them are very obvious, but I try to look for the trees and the power lines across the street and how they look. If the power lines look completely straight, or the trees don't look like they're all crazy, then the window probably does not have glass impaction. Doesn't mean it doesn't, by the way. It actually probably does, but just not severe glass impaction. But if the window has issues with or you can see that the reflection in the window is messed up, then it probably has issues with glass impaction. Okay. The last problem that I focus on would be, this is not as significant an issue, but it's the weep holes. And the reason why I'm focusing on this is because they are going to be on, probably 80% of vinyl windows. And it's the drainage system for the window. But it gets clogged and empties into the house. Okay, so into the frame is the best way to put it. I'm just going to put that down here, so into the frame of the house. Okay, so that's the way that will typically work. So those are the four problems that I typically bring up. Now I should say it's the four visual problems that I typically bring up. Things like drafts and whatnot, you want to bring up at every door because it's going to be the most common problems. But when it comes to me keeping agreement, almost forcing agreement with the customer, the way that I'll force the agreement with the customer is by getting problems that they can't say no to, sorry. So the most common problems that you'll see that are non-visual problems would be drafts, a lack of energy efficiency, and why is this doing this? I can't stand when Microsoft Word doesn't, it like changes the format on you, you know? All right. And hard to, what the hell? It's messing up my spacing like bad. People in the call center are fighting. Boom, 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 boom. It's ridiculous that I have to do that to get the, what, where's, I'm having struggles here, whatever. It's going to be all messed up on here. That's fine. So hard to operate would be the second problem that I focus on all the time. That's non-visual. Okay. So those are the two non-visual problems that I probably bring up most, okay? There's a lot more problems that can exist with vinyl windows. We went through that spider graph thing yesterday, and you can find those problems listed in the paper that I gave you with the PowerPoint presentation. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on that, but that's a brief recap of what we went over yesterday, the major problems that we see and stuff like that, okay? Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some pictures of problems with the windows, and I'm going to show you what those look like. And we're not just going to focus on vinyl with this. We're going to focus on a bunch of different kinds. Okay, so this is an Anderson window. It's an older Anderson window. This is actually, ironically, a little bit ironically, it's a the union, the carpentry union up in Massachusetts. My mother had a softball game for her AA or whatever, and I was like walking by this building, and I'm like, man, those are Anderson windows, and they're really screwed up. I better make sure that I take some pictures of those. So they're old windows. These windows are probably 40 years old, would be my guess, just judging by the rough age of the building, 30 to 40 years old. And they get beat down by the sun. The sun affects these windows significantly based on where they're at in the building. It's a place with a lot of sunlight. So the first thing that I'll point out is that, so what these are called vinyl clad windows, which means they have vinyl on the outside and they have wood on the inside of them. Okay. Now, the vinyl cladding on the outside, the first thing I want to point out is that there's significant fading in the material. Now, it's tough because you don't have anything else to go off of. We will in a second, but you can see the powdery substance on the window. If you were to go up there and you were to wipe, and this question's for you, Sam, just I want to know if you understand this, but if you were to go up there and wipe your finger on it, you know how you'd feel like the white plastic lawn furniture, like cheap stuff, you feel that powder on it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so like kind of chalky feeling.
Exactly. Yep. Chalky is a good way to put it. Exactly. So that's what's happening with that window right there. There's also, and it's tougher to see from the pictures, but there's water damage on the inside of the windows. You can kind of see that right here, inside here. Now, the reason why that water damage exists is because most likely is because that window is not efficient. And in the wintertime, there's probably snow sitting up against it. There's probably, colder on the outside, really warm air on the inside. My guess is they heat the building. It's a bunch of old people working there. My guess is they heat the building pretty aggressively. And so you get this, heat working up against the glass where it's really, really cold. And the contrast in temperature causes moisture to form on the inside of the glass. So there's two different kinds of condensation. There's condensation that appears inside of the two panes of glass, which we'll go over here in a little bit. And then there's condensation that appears on the inside of the glass. Now, the condensation that's appearing on the inside of the glass is going to be because the connection of those two different temperatures kind of slamming into each other. That's what's going to cause the condensation on the inside of the glass. Now, that is a lot less nefarious. It shows you the drafts. It shows you the lack of energy efficiency, but it's not as much of an issue unless you have a window that has wood inside, like this window, where you're going to have a lot of moisture rotting and stuff like that on the inside of the window. The frame's obviously rotted here as well, or at least there's some paint peeling on it. My guess is there's some rotting in there too. Okay, so next picture is the same set of windows, different window. This might actually be the same one, but yeah, this is just a front version of it, I believe. Let's see. I can actually tell you right now. Nope, it's a different one. This is the one next to it. You can tell because of the pattern of the paint peeling down here. And my guess is when you see like wood that's slightly darker and stuff like that, that's going to indicate rotting as well. But you see the same issues here. There's obviously the fading, there's the rotting of the material on the inside of the windows. There's the rotting around the windows. And then this window's the one that I wanted to point out most here. So the thing I'll point out first here is that you can see the fading on the window. You can actually see where some of that powder has like come off of the window. Now, if I go up here on this window, you'll see the color change right here. Okay. Now you might go, well, isn't that just the overhang or whatever, the shade? And the overhang is way up here. The overhang it's not wide enough to be able to make shade like that on there. You can see such a drastic difference. The shade has protected this window above this point here, but this window has a huge contrast in the way that it's fading because of the fact that the sun is beating down on the bottom part of the window. So that's why you see that there. You'll also notice that, sorry, the Colson is being very loud right now. You'll also notice that, can you hear that, Sam, through there or no?
No, I can't hear it.
Okay. It's distracting to only me then. You can see the cracking on the material here. That's because it weakens over time and starts to get destroyed. You can also see the weather stripping coming out of the material here as well, which is just an aging issue. And they probably get heavier use out of this window than they did with the downstairs windows. Rotting is also occurring in the frame around the window too. So it's a vinyl clad window. That's what Anderson Black and Orange uses. Anderson Black and Orange is the non-replacement new construction company for Anderson. They focus on like windows for new houses. It doesn't mean that somebody can't use those windows for replacement. That being said, they're not recommended for that. They're not replacement windows, but some contractors I'm sure use them, especially if the customers requested it. But they're vinyl clad windows. They have wood on the outside. I mean, on the inside. Vinyl on the outside, sort of covering that wood, acting as like a protector against some damage. And it does work to an extent. It works it doesn't work on the window itself. It works on like it works for a number of years is the best way to put it. So you'll probably it's a 20-year window. So that window is going to last for about 20 years, which is good. It's just not as good as Renewal by Anderson. Okay, this is a vinyl window. Okay, so this is a vinyl window that most people would look at and go, I don't see a lot of significant problems, but I look at this and I see a gold mine for what we're looking for. Now, Sam, I'm going to ask you the question and again, most people can't pick out a ton of problems with this window, but what problems do you pick out just from your knowledge if you had to pick out some problems here?
I'd probably say there's rotting possibly in that frame at the bottom. You can see kind of the gap in all three windows.
Yep. What else?
Other than that, probably the glass impaction as well. The
glass impaction is extremely prevalent. Yep.
Yeah, you can definitely tell right there with the especially that middle window with the trees. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I can't really tell anything else.
Yeah, those are the two major problems. So you did pick out the two major problems, which is good. Okay. The first one I'd probably bring up is the glass impaction just because of how clear it is. Every window up here has the glass impaction on it, and you can see, I think it's trees across the street that are warped significantly in the windows. Rotting, it looks like, is occurring in the frames to an extent. Rotting or mold, either way, it's a problem. And that's because these are replacement vinyl windows that were installed into original wood frames. So you probably remember me going through that yesterday, but that's the way that replacement windows work. You also see a huge loss of glass space here as well. I mean, the original windows, the glass probably went up to right here where these windows start. And so now you see, a significant amount of glass loss, at least an inch or two of glass loss. One second, I'm going to text the call center manager because it's getting really loud up there. Are you riling them up or something like that?
No, this is literally. I've been quiet, like, I'm not saying shit, this ain't me. I'm trying to get work done.
All right, sorry about that. I tried to do it in like a nice way where I was like, "Are you riling everybody up?" jokingly, just to try to make everybody realize, like, "Hey, because I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to be like, whining about how loud they're being or whatever." But man, it's getting loud out there. I'm surprised you can't hear that, Sam, especially with the microphone on. But it's like,
I heard the last part before you said something. I was like, oh shit, it is getting
yeah,
loud.
yeah, and you can imagine if it's that loud through here, then it's got to be extremely loud here. So it's crazy. They're it's Saturday. They're having fun, and that's good. I want them to have fun. I just it gets a little bit distracting as you're going through. You know what I'm saying? Definitely. So
For sure.
is what it is. But I think that I think they get the point. So so that's you see the glass loss here. So if I'm walking up to this house, right, you don't see weep holes, so I'm not going to bring up the weep holes. Now, I will say that the weep holes probably exist. They're probably right underneath here, like at the bottom of the window. And so that's probably where the weep holes are, the windows. I have to imagine that they have some sort of drainage system, or else that's a whole separate problem. That being said, what I'm bringing up probably here first is the glass impaction, because it's most visual. And then I'm going to bring up the fact that they're replacement vinyl windows put into at least somewhat rotting frames. Okay. And so the biggest thing I'm focusing on here, though, is, the windows are probably relatively new within the last, 5 to 10 years anyways. And so my biggest focus is going to be on inspection. And we'll talk about that in a second, pushing inspection versus pushing window problems. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm just going to put a note to myself here in a Microsoft Word document about that, just to make sure that I don't forget. Okay. Okay, so the next window is it's a Pella window. This is a joke that I had. I was asking people to pull up the problems with this window here. There's not really any issues. It literally was just installed. You can see the sticker still in it, That being said, I will point out that this is what's called an aluminum clad window, or Pella makes an aluminum clad window. I don't know if this is this might be their vinyl window, but an aluminum clad window is a wood-based window that has aluminum wrapped around it. It's a material that we got rid of back in the 70s because it was bad. It was a bad material. It was the biggest problem was that the water would easily seep underneath the metal and into the wood and cause a lot of rotting issues in the wood. They actually settled a really big class action lawsuit. I think it was in the $30 million range, $35 million range. It originally was like 90 or $100 million, and then they settled for $30 million or $35 million over the course of a couple of years. A strange court case, if you go look it up. Very interesting court case where there was a lot of like one of the lawyers that got in trouble for some weird stuff during this. They had to restart the trial. It's an interesting case, interesting to see. But there's not many problems there. There will be in a couple of years, just not yet. All right, this window's a mess. It's also one of my favorite windows to go through. Is this one, because there's just so much wrong with this. And overtly, right? I mean, you can see that there's issues with this, even if you can't pull out the problems yet, even if you're like, I don't really know what the issue is, you can tell that if this was put in your house, you'd be like, okay, there's something wrong here, right? Now, the first thing I want to point out is look at how much glass space that window is taking up. It's taking up a significant amount of glass space. And you're seeing essentially how the what do they call it? How the sausage is made there. That you can see all the exposed frames around the windows. All that stuff can be taken out really down to here, really down to the stud. And then a window can be put in there, and you're talking about, 2 or 3 more inches of glass space around the entire window. That's a significant amount of glass space that's being lost by that window. And then they're trying to fit a window into a frame that won't fit the window. And you can see that by the warping on the bottom here. You see the gap there at the bottom. That gap is going to cause water infiltration and air infiltration. Now they'll cap it off, and that will stop some of that. At least the water infiltration, but the air is still going to infiltrate through that. And if there's any area for water to penetrate, then it's going to get through there. In addition to that, it's a rotting frame that this is going into. So you can see the rotting in the frame, and not just the frame directly around the window, but the rotting in the bottom of the sill as well. All this here has been like putty. They put putty over the wood to try to cover up those issues, but it's not working out. The problems still exist, and they exist to a significant extent. And then there's some weird stuff going on up here too. I don't even know how they have this installed. It looks like it's like bent in or whatever, but that's not something you're going to run into typically. That's just a weird, I don't know what the hell they're thinking. This is a bad installation though, a very bad installation. These problems are a little bit more overt. This is I think it's actually a vinyl window in there, but I'm not sure. You can't see the window too well. This metal piece that's over the window though, you typically only see over wood windows. That's why I say I'm not 100% sure. That's a storm window. Okay, so a storm window is a metal casing that goes over the window, and it's meant for, well, it's meant for storms. You get that. It's meant for airflow into the property. That being said, it's meant to block wind. That's why it's called a storm window, not to be energy efficient. It's a metal window. It's not going to be an energy efficient product. It's just going to block some significant airflow into the home. Like if you were to have a hurricane, that's going to block some of the wind. So for the everyday user, for someone that is, in their house every day or whatever, that's not, I assume that most people aren't just going into a certain house because there's a storm coming. It's not a beneficial product to have. It's just bulky, difficult to operate, open and close. And it doesn't really do anything for the energy efficiency. It doesn't look extremely well neither. Now you can also see rotting in the frame here as well. And again, they try to cover that up with like putty. And so it doesn't look good. Water and air can infiltrate in that as well. So it's not a fantastic window. Good. All right, we're just going to take a 2-minute break. I'm just going to use the restroom quick and then we'll be right back on. So just 2-minute break. Okay, sorry, we got like 80 things going on at one time. We got this callback thing going on right now. Andrew's jumping on and listening to people do callbacks to get some training for that. So I just get to deal with that real quick as well. I actually didn't even use the bathroom, so it is what it is. It is what it is. We're gonna roll with it now. We'll take a break in a few minutes if we need to. All right, so the next window that we're gonna go through is right here. This is an interesting window as well. This is definitely a vinyl window. It's a vinyl bay window. Now, this bay window was built all screwed up. There's problems on pretty much every level with this window. So you have the problems that exist in the frame of the window itself. which is more of like a builder's problem around the window, and then you have the problems that exist in the window because they're older vinyl windows. You can see here that what the window is built in is extremely warped. It's extremely lopsided. This side is smaller than this side here, and so it's problems are going to be inherent in this window, regardless of whether or not there's issues in the actual product itself, the vinyl product itself. Now, there is issues in the vinyl product itself, but either way, it really wouldn't have mattered because this window is built on a bad foundation. Now we can do things like this over. We can pull that whole thing apart and take care of that. We'll do projects like that, even though there's construction involved. So largely we can do things like that. Same thing with, like, let's say, for example, you had a window like, let's just say like the last one, like a window like right here, like that, and you wanted to turn that into a bay window and like cut the wall open to extend it or whatever, then we can do stuff like that too. That's not a problem. We can do construction work like that. But this bay window here, it's sitting in that screwed up frame. You see, we'll start here on this side. You can see that whatever caulking material or whatever that they tried to seal the window up with after the fact has started to grow like some sort of mold or mildew on it. That's just more of a cosmetic issue. It's not going to do anything to the window itself. Again, there's enough foundational problems here where I would bring that up as an issue because it looks terrible. It doesn't look good at all. But that's not going to be the main issue that I'm going to go after with this window. Now you can see what they've tried to cover up. If you look down here, where that caulking or whatever sealant, where that is at, you can see that they're trying to plug holes there. That was probably a pretty massive hole. Now they're trying to plug up that hole. Okay. Now you can see the warping in this window as well. Okay. That warping is probably existing because of how the frame sits. And so that window has to sort of mold to that frame. So over time, it starts to pull apart, but you're going to get a gap in the window right here. So you're going to have airflow straight in there. Now, this is just a screen out here, but that screen is showing you what that window will look like as well, how that warping in that window is going to look like. Now, the next problem that you see is right here. There's exposed wood underneath that. So you can tell that, I think they tried to caulk it at one point. They tried to seal it at one point, but they sort of gave up on that. There's now an open hole there for moisture to flow through. And you can see that they also tried to put this window kind of back together as well. This middle window here has warping here. When I talk about looking for like a, quote unquote smiling window, this is what I mean by smiling window. You can see that there's a small like curve right here. And that's going to cause a sail failure in the window. So you're going to get things like condensation and fog in that glass. Even if it hasn't started yet, it's on its way to starting for sure. Well, I think we're getting a call in the office here. 1 second. We're getting a call in the office. Sorry, there's just somebody here and the guy in the showroom doesn't call my phone. The girl does, but the guy in the showroom calls like a random phone that's across the room for some reason. I don't know why he does that, but it is what it is. Now you do see the weep holes down here in this window, okay? And you do see separation in the corner of this window as well. Again, that's all going to lead to sail failure. And then you see the same problems on this side of the window that you saw on the other side of the window, the warping, the fact that the caulking is off and that you see open holes where moisture will flow through, okay? Now, one thing I want to point out too, yeah, Carl calls that phone every time. So I didn't, he's okay.
Tell him to call Michelle's.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, you can call that, or even mine, at least it's right next to me. Because I never hear that one. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't even know that thing was still connected.
What's that?
I didn't even know it was still connected.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He calls that one all the time. I don't know. I don't know why he calls that. I think it's because it's under Andrew's name. So then, so you can see here too, the last thing I want to point out with this one is you can see the discoloration in this screen here. You see how it's darker and whatnot. That's what I mean when I say that the vinyl discolors over time. So that's going to be because of the breakdown in the material. It's just showing up in the screen first. I don't know, probably because it's not as protected or whatever. You see dents in the frame as well. Now, what am I going to bring up with this window? Because here's the deal: is that like I pointed out all those issues. That's great. It's great to learn more about the issues. But the question is, when you walk up to the house, you're not going to go on for 10 minutes about what problems you see. So you're going to have to select a couple window problems to point out. The first thing that when I see this window and I walk up, it's going to be like shock and awe. When the customer opens that door, I'm going to say, good afternoon. My name is Paul Duffy, Mr. Jones. Great, Mr. Jones. I'm with Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work for Mrs. Smith down the street. The reason why I'm out here, though, is I noticed there was some significant damage in this vinyl bay window here. How long ago did you move into the house, Mr. Jones? Oh, I moved in like 2-3 years ago. Okay, so this window was already here, I'm guessing. Okay, and the home inspector didn't even point this out. They didn't point this out at all. No, they didn't say anything about it. All right, well, sir, I want to point out that. And I hate to bring this up this way, but I've never seen a frame that's so off. I've never seen a frame in a window that's so distorted and warped. And it's a structural issue for the house, sir. That's why I'm surprised that a home inspector never brought it up. Did you notice that the frame here was warped significantly? I mean, I noticed it was a little bit off, but I didn't really think about it too much. It didn't seem like it was that off. So I figured that it was, fine or whatever. But, I think I'm fine. I don't think I have any significant issues right now that I can't, deal with or whatever. Okay, sir. And I can understand. I mean, to the average person that's not like trained on looking for, window issues and whatnot, you're not going to notice how significant the frame is warping here. But the frame warping like that, sir, is going to lead to other problems in your home. You have all kinds of areas here that are exposed to moisture that will allow for the rotting of the frame of your actual house. Not that it's happening yet, but that will allow for the rotting of the frame of your actual house. So there's some significant issues to deal with. Did you notice that right when you moved in, or is it something that you noticed more recently? I mean, I noticed that it was a little bit off when I moved in, but I just figured, the inspector didn't bring it up. So I figured it would be fine, but I'm not going to do anything with my windows right now. No, of course not, sir. Before I go, though, I just wanted to point out that you can also see warping in the window itself. That's why you see open gaps that allow for airflow into your home. So during the wintertime, that's why you're probably getting a draft outside of this area of your home. That being said, there's also some mold that you can see growing in your windows and a lot of discoloration. So there's obviously a lot of significant problems here, sir. May I make a suggestion? I mean, you can make a suggestion, but like I said, I'm just not going to do anything with the windows right now. So, I mean, it's probably not really worth your time. Oh, no, sir. And, I can understand. I mean, as a relatively new homeowner, only been here for a couple of years, you probably have a lot of things on your list. All I would do is have somebody come out to inspect it, though, just to check and see if there's any other significant issues or how big these issues actually are. And if we can't be a service to you, then that's fine. We'll just recommend someone else who can eventually down the line. But if we can help you, then we'll show you our windows and how they're installed, and then ultimately leave you with a free price quote. So that way down the line, when you're ready, at least you have the information set aside. Now, I'm sure that would be at least helpful to you, sir. I mean, it would be helpful, sure. An inspection would be helpful, but I can tell you right now, it's going to be a couple of years before we do anything. No, I wouldn't even suggest that you do it now, sir, if you're not in a comfortable place to do that right now. I would just suggest that you get an inspection. We go over all your options, answer any questions that you have, of course, and we leave you with a quote that's good for a year. So at least you have the information set aside for, down the line whenever you're ready. Now, I have your last name here is Jones. What's your first? It's Paul, but I'm not going to be ready in the next year. I mean, maybe like 2-3 years, but not in the next year. Yes, sir. I mean, I'd still advise you to get the inspection done because at least you'll know how big the problems are here and how to prioritize this window. That being said, even though the quote's only good for a full year, you'll know whether or not you want to do business with us again, and whether or not you want to give us a call back whenever you are ready to do this. That being said, sir, what time of day typically works best for you, mornings or afternoons? They say something like, afternoons. Okay, great. I'll take a note of that. Now I have your address here. It's 123 Main Street. What's your phone number? So, by the way, too, side note, I'm just asking what time are you typically home, what time do you get out of work or whatever, as a way to get back into the script. I'm not going anywhere with that. I'll literally say, okay, I'll take a note of that and then I'll move on. But that's how I bring up the problems. I'm not diving into every single issue here. I'm just diving into the main important ones. With a window like this, where the problems are severe, I'm going to make them sound severe because they are severe. I'm not going to do that with a window that's not severe, but this window has some severe issues. That's why I'm bringing it up in that way. Now this is a close-up of it looks like the our left side of the window. And you can see here the mold better. You can see where they've tried to cover up the holes. It looks like there's cracks starting to form in even that caulking as well. There's definitely the warping that we were talking about and the discoloration. You can actually see, if you look at the corners here of the vinyl window, you can see the discoloration and mold starting to grow in the actual window itself, like right inside the glass. That's a problem. It's not a good window in any way. I mean, down to the screen, it's not a good window. This is how significant that hole is here. If you were to hit that like right above that hole, you would have rotted wood come straight out of that hole, guarantee it. All right. Right here is just a significant gap in a vinyl window. Okay, so you can look around for gaps like this in vinyl windows. You're going to see them quite a bit. That's a pretty significant issue. And then right here is a great picture of a window that doesn't lock. Okay, so with this window here, the hook is not lining up to the latch. And it's a problem that I love to bring up to customers because it's a dangerous issue. So it's an issue that's important. And any issue that's going to be that important to customers, especially surrounding safety of children, stuff like that, is going to be important for me to bring up. I would want someone to tell me if I thought that there was a dangerous concern with my window, and that's what you see right here. It's also an energy efficiency concern because, like I said yesterday, you're going to lose about 30% of your energy efficiency through that window if the lock does not line up. Now, I want to point out as well, while we're on this issue, you can see mold starting to grow. It looks like in the glass, in the creases of the window and stuff like that. You can see that there's discoloration here as well. This is another example of those locks not lining up. So I don't even know where that latch would be. But you can see again that they're trying to lock the window. It's not succeeding. It's just pushing the window farther apart. That happens in a lot of homes. Vinyl windows are notorious for that problem. And this is a gap. Again, this window is not closing. This is additionally also, believe that's a vinyl window, but it could be a wood window. Actually, that's probably a wood window. Looks like a casement window that doesn't close all the way, or an awning window that doesn't close all the way. So remember, casements, they open outward with the crank. Awning windows open upward with the crank. So as looking at that, it's tough to tell. But just judging by the fact that there might be hardware right here, and the fact that we can't see the entire window, it could be either one. Okay, now to point out a couple other things, you can see the discoloration and mold growing in the glass of the window. Okay, that might be a single pane window. Actually, it's no, it's a double pane window because you can see the spacer right here. But there's mold growing in that glass as well. Probably from the moisture sitting inside of the house. Now this window here is sent by Julie, one of the managers here. This was her window before she got replaced by our companies. Actually, Julie has kind of a cool story. She started with our company after getting her windows done just about a year ago from our company. So she got her windows done and she's like, man, I really like that company. I really like those windows. What can I do to start with the company? And then she started with us. So it's really great to see her, kind of grow from that. But this is a picture of her home before the windows got replaced. You can see the material pulling up. It's gone. The material is gone. That's supposed to be wood underneath there. It's supposed to be wood underneath there. Think about it. There's no wood in sight. There might be some tucked up in that piece of metal there, but there's not a significant amount of that wood left. There's serious rotting there. The metal casing over the window. So you can see here, this metal casing, that's the storm window that I talked about. So this inside of here, that's the window itself. So you have a single pane window. Single pane means one piece of glass versus two. So a double pane window has a sail in between it, has two pieces of glass. A single pane window just has one piece of glass. But you can see right there, significant rotting and rust in the window. You can see that it's a single pane window. So there's going to be airflow in and out of that home. There's going to be issues with rotting and discoloration as well. They're not going to be energy efficient at all. Here's another window. Look at that significant rotting. That's like real bad rotting. Paint peeling and rotting. You can see right there, that joint's all screwed up. The joint in the corner of the window there. It looks like there's some damage to the metal piece of the window maybe too or something. I don't know. That's a weird thing right there. And then you can see the rotting and the glazing starting to peel off in the wooden window. This is a damage as a result of a window having water leaking into the home. So the water leaked into the home because the vinyl window allowed for it to. It leaked through the weep holes into the walls, and this is the result of that happening. You can't see that obviously from outside of the house or really inside the house, it's inside the walls, but that's exactly why it's so important to focus on inspection, because in inspection, they will find issues like that. Now, right here, this is an old wood window. This window has single pane glass in it. You can see that the glazing is starting to peel off. If you guys remember from training the other day, I said that all of these windows have like straight wood pieces that hold the glass together. And then there's glazing that like molds the material together to make it look nice on the glass. That's starting to go missing here. So you can kind of see that the straight wood pieces that are holding the glass in there. Because remember, these are all separate panes of glass. So each window here has 1, 2, 3, 4 panes of glass. You can see on the last window, that's the storm window over the wood window. Okay, that's the metal casing storm window. Now the storm window too will lead to rot in the sill. So what ends up happening is these sills are metal, but there's wood underneath that metal. The water will get into that storm window and it will just sit there against the window sill. And if you have a wood frame or a wood sill, then you're screwed. You're going to get a significant amount of rot inside of that wood. So that's a very common problem with windows that have storm windows on top of them. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it. This one's like overtly bad. I don't even got to explain that one. It's kind of a joke. So that's it for what we'll go over when it comes to window pictures. Now you can Google, and I encourage you to Google any of these window problems to see more pictures of them, because that's how you learn. That's what's going to teach you this. Now we're going to take a quick 3-minute break, 3-minute bathroom break or whatever, and then we'll jump back into the conversation part of this. Okay. Man, I'm excited to read this article about the winners and losers in the NFL draft. That'll be fun. I'm gonna do that after. That's a good tattoo article. I got a tattoo appointment after this. That's gonna be a good article to read there in that. I'll have to save that. Of course, the first loser is the Jets. For some reason, I thought they did pretty well. I thought they made a lot of moves this offseason, but I guess they're going to be considered losers until they're not losers. So that's fine. There's two ways to attack any pitch when you're dealing with the customer, and they create different kinds of leads. Okay, so the first way is to go after window problems, and that's the way that I think is most important to learn, because that's going to be your bread and butter. That gets you the best quality appointments, and it's essential. You can't do the job without being able to do that. The second way, you can do the job without being able to do it, but it definitely adds a lot more to your abilities, and it's easy to get over objections using this way, and that is to focus on inspection of the windows. Now, that might sound simple. Well, you just say inspection or whatever. This second way, I'm going to go through right now, because we've been going through some window problems, and I'm going to contrast the two next to each other. This second way is meant for people that don't have significant visual window issues. Okay. So people that don't have significant visual window issues, you're going to focus more on inspection with the windows. And so to give you an example, let's just take up, let's see here. I'm going to use this window right here, not that one. That's got a lot of problems, obviously. Let's use this window right here. Let's just say, for example, that even this with this window, let's just say that it's a glass impaction or whatever. That's the major issue. Fine, maybe some rotting in the frame. So I'm going to use this window. So I knock on the door. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Duffy. I hope you're Mr. Jones. Yeah, what's up? Hi, Mr. Jones. I'm with Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work for Mrs. Smith over on 123 Main Street. Oh yeah, I'm not going to be interested in any windows, man, but I definitely appreciate your time. But you're not going to get any business here, so you might as well take off now. No, sir, I promise I'll be quick. That being said, I wanted to point out, it looked like you had some replacement vinyl windows here. How long ago did you move into the house? Yeah, we moved in like 2 years ago, man. I mean, the windows were done by the previous owner, so they were done, not too far before that. So they're really fine. Yes, sir. And like I said, they did look like they had been replaced. I did want to point out here that I did see this, triple double hung window here with this, the 3 double hung windows. And I did notice walking up, there was a bit of glass impaction there, which is a warping of the glass. How long ago did you say you moved to the house? A couple of years ago. Okay, so this is definitely put in before you moved in, like you said, the previous owner put it in, and you can tell that it's going to be at least 8 to 10 years old because of that warping in the glass there. Are all the windows around the house vinyl windows? Yeah, but I mean, it's not. I haven't noticed any problems with them, so they're fine. I know that they might not be the greatest windows or whatever, but it's way down the list, man. It's not something that we're interested in doing right now. Okay, sir. Well, one thing I wanted to point out before I go, the last thing I wanted to point out before I go is that it looked like there was some rotting around the frames of the windows, which happens when you install these vinyl windows in your house because you're installing them to the original wooden frames. That being said, sir, may I make a suggestion? I mean, you can make a suggestion, man, but I'm telling you, if your suggestion is to buy new windows, I'm not going to buy new windows. It's just not going to happen right now. It's not the right time for us. So I don't know how many ways you want me to tell you, but I'm not going to buy new windows right now. No, so that would definitely not be my suggestion, especially being, like you said, a newer homeowner in the home. What I would suggest is that we have somebody come out while we're already out seeing your neighbor. They would inspect the window for you to see if you're having any significant problems and what kind of problems you're having. They would test the energy efficiency. And if we can't be a service to you, then we just recommend someone else who can. But if we could by chance help you, then we'd show you our windows and we'd show you how they're installed. And then we leave you with a free price quote for down the line when you're ready. That being said, that being said, does that sound helpful? It sounds like it could be helpful, man, but probably in a couple of years, we're not going to do the windows right now. And so, we got the roof to handle. So it's just not the right time right now. No, sir, of course not. I mean, the roof is definitely more important than the windows. I would definitely handle that first. That being said, the goal of the visit is just to go over your options, answer your questions, and leave you with a quote that's good for a year. So then when you already, even if it's after the roof, at least you have the information set aside. That being said, I have your last name here as Jones. What's your first? And then they might say no, but they might say something like, okay, you're already in the neighborhood. Fine. Just stop by, whatever. Just give me a quote. Just, you're gonna have to make it quick or something like that, right? But they're likely to give you an opportunity, given the fact that you're separating them from the need to do the windows. You're taking a strong stance against them doing the windows. No, sir, it's not about you doing the windows. It's just about you getting a quote. And I know that that's something that we say, whatever, but you're super reinforcing that by going over that numerous times. It's just an inspection. We're going to give you a quote, but the quote is secondary to inspection. So it really is helpful. To me, it's an easier way to pitch, and it allows you to avoid objections to a large extent. That's why I enjoy it, because it's easy to work your way out of objections when you're agreeing with the customer on a lot of things. So when the customer says something like, no, I'm going to be doing my roof first, I say, of course, that's definitely what you want to focus on. That makes total sense, right? And that's going to be helpful to dealing with that customer. Sam, do you have any questions on that?
I do not.
Okay. And I know it's a lot of information in this. So there's two different ways to make it simple. There's two different ways to pitch these window problems. The first way is to go through all the significant issues. It's to layer on a significant amount of questions, things like that. And that's a strong way to do it. That's a way to get a good appointment. And that's the way that you want to focus on when you first start. But after a couple of weeks, you want to start to focus on the emotional intelligence, reading the customer. The customer starts giving you objections. The way that you interact with those objections is extremely important. And so you have the ability to say, no, sir, of course you're not going to do the windows right now. We are just going to focus on the inspection of your windows, just on checking the windows out and leaving you with a free quote. Okay. So it makes things a little bit easier there. All right, let's get back to this Microsoft Word document. Okay, so when it comes to the window problems, the basic conversation, okay, how you ask the questions is important. No, yes, or no questions. Diversify. Divert. I definitely spelled that wrong. Diverse. Your questions. And I'll give you an example of that. You don't just want to ask the same question over and over again. So you might do something like you'll ask, how many windows are drafty, or blank. You're gonna ask them how many as a question, or you could ask them the question, how long have you been dealing with the operational issues? Or whatever other problem exists. Okay, so it doesn't got to be operational issues. Obviously, you can insert another problem there. All right, you might ask, are you having blank issue more on the front or the back of your home? You might ask, what room is giving you more issues with blank? You might ask what's called a forced choice question, which you can see in your training manual, which would be like, most of your neighbors can't spell today, Jesus, are experiencing issues with drafts. Would you say that is more of an issue, or just hot and cold spots. Okay. So those are just examples of questions that you can ask to diversify your conversation, so you're not asking the same question over and over again, because that gets dull and boring to the customer. And there's two things that you want to avoid when it comes to the conversation that people kind of fall into, two traps that people fall into. One of those traps, let's see, I'm just gonna avoid surveying the customer with questions and avoid giving the customer a speech about problems. So what I mean by that is, surveying the customer would be if I said something like, so Mr. Jones, how many windows are drafty? Okay, and how many are hard to open and close? And how many are hard to lock securely? Okay, Mr. Jones, and how many windows do you have here that are rotting? Okay, so that would be surveying the customer, giving them a speech. And you'd be surprised the amount of people do this, because every time I do this, people are like, what, people do that? People do it. People do it a lot. So the second kind of that would be like, Mr. Jones, a lot of times when you see warping vinyl windows like this, they start to have issues with drafts. And the reason why they start to have issues with drafts is because they are, I don't know, warping. Warping is going to cause a lot of other problems, like the windows will become hard to open and close. And when the windows become hard to open and close, you're going to see a lot more issues with being able to, lock the windows. And they just like layer on bullshit after bullshit after bullshit. And it bores the customer. It drives them insane. And so you don't want to fall into that with the customer either. So those are the things that I would caution against. Okay. So to make a window problem conversation, that's what we're going to do here. We're going to make a couple different conversations. So when you're practicing this weekend, this is sort of what I want you to go off of. What I would do is, if you're confused on how to do the window problem conversation, I would just listen to this over and over again, because all I'm going to do is give sample conversations. First, I'm going to focus on the window problems conversation. Then I'm going to focus on the inspection conversation. So let's start by using some of these pictures. Okay, so I'm going to focus on window problems with the same picture that I just focused on inspection with. And you might say, well, how aren't you focusing on the inspection because you don't see a lot of problems? No, I'm focusing on the inspection because of the emotional intelligence I'm using when I'm dealing with the customer. That last customer I dealt with was a little bit of an ass, to put it bluntly. And I was playing the customer. You know what I'm saying? So I was not. I gave myself a little bit of a hard time in the last one, right? So if I have a customer that starts to do that, then I will immediately shift gears from asking them a zillion questions about the windows to jumping right into, look, sir, we're just going to have somebody come out to inspect your windows, right? So I mean that to a basic level, obviously. Now, if I see a lack of window problems, it's just more likely that I will end up in that direction because there is a lack of problems. So it makes sense to focus on inspection more when there's this lack of window issues. Okay, so knock, knock, knock. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Duffy. I hope you're Mr. Jones. Hi, Mr. Jones. I'm with Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work for Mrs. Smith right down the street over on 123 Main Street. And the reason why I stopped out is because it looks like you had some replacement vinyl windows that were maybe a couple of years old. Sir, how long have you lived in the home? I've been here for like a year. Okay, sir. Well, congratulations on the new home. It seems like a beautiful neighborhood. Now, did they tell you how long ago, sir, that the windows were replaced? No, they just said that they did them before, sometime before we moved in. Okay, sir. Well, I'd take a very educated guess that they're about 10 years old. Does that sound like it could be about right? I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe they just said that they were newer, but everybody considers newer a different thing. So maybe they're 10 years old. Well, maybe they're 5. I have no idea. Okay, so well, the reason why I ask is because I noticed walking up, there was some significant warping in the glass of your windows here. I'm guessing that you've never noticed that before, right? I mean, you've only been here for a year. People don't pay that much attention. No, I never noticed it. Okay, so well, next time you're out here, or if you want me to show you now, if you look at your windows, then there's like a funhouse mirror effect going on here. Where you can see across the street, it looks like a funhouse mirror. You can see the trees across the street. Now, that might not seem like a significant issue, sir, but that's only happening because of the warping of your product. Okay, what can you show me? I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, sir, absolutely. Yeah, if you take a step out here, you see these 3 windows up here on this sort of 3-panel window here. You can see how the warping is happening in the glass. Oh yeah, I never noticed that before. But I'm not having that big of an issue with the windows or not like that. I mean, we just went through the winter, it wasn't that cold. No, sir, I would imagine that it might not be yet. That being said, if you look at the bottom of your windows here, sir, you can see where the wood has started to rot in the frames of the windows. That's going to happen, sir, because when they do these insert replacement windows, they don't replace the rotting wood around the window. They just replace the window itself. And so you're going to see actually that problem get a lot worse because the water is going to get caught in the vinyl windows on the sides of the windows, and it's going to seep into the wood. Does that make sense, sir? I mean, yeah, that makes sense. But, I mean, we're not going to do the windows anytime soon, man. Just, I would, but because we just moved in, there's other stuff that we have planned, like we got to do the bathroom over, stuff like that. Okay, cool. That's fun then. Actually, at least, projects like that, where you get to customize things are a little bit fun, right? So that being said, sir, all I would do is have somebody come out just to check the windows, energy efficiency. And then they would check other problems too, like, how they open and close and things like that. They would inspect them for you. And then if we can't be a service team, then we'll just recommend someone else who can. But if we can help you, then we'll show you our windows. We'll show you how they're installed and leave you with a free price quote. That way, when you're ready, at least you have the information set aside. Now, does that sound helpful? I mean, it sounds like it could be helpful, sure. And then I would go on from there. So that's an example of the window problem conversation using a window that, quite frankly, doesn't have a ton of window problems. Now, you might ask them questions like, here's a good example of a question that I ask it. Sir, I know you haven't been in the neighborhood long, but I've talked to all your neighbors all day here. They've been saying that they've been experiencing extreme drafts in their windows. Now, would you say that you have a problem more with extreme drafts or just a little bit of hot and cold spots? Now, the reason why I'm phrasing the question like that is because A, I'm bringing their neighbors into it. Okay, so it's somebody that they're familiar with, someone that inherently, based on society, they can trust. They're having the same issue, sir. Their windows are drafty. Your windows must be drafty too. It's sending a signal to the customer that that's what's normal in their neighborhood. That's what they should be experiencing. So that's the first thing that I'll bring up there. The second thing is that I give them an out as to why they wouldn't notice. You didn't move in that long ago, but I'm sure that you've experienced some drafts or maybe hot and cold spots. And then third, I'm giving them this option where they can go with the extreme drafts or just a little bit of hot and cold spots. What most customers are going to do is they're going to go with a little bit of hot and cold spots because it doesn't seem as big of a problem as the extreme drafts in the home. That being said, it's still a major problem. If you have hot and cold spots all around your house, then you're going to lose energy efficiency. You're going to lose money on energy efficiency. Okay. So that's one example of a conversation. 1 second. Okay. All right, so we're rolling. Okay, so that's one example of the conversation. Okay, I already gave the example of inspection with this window. Okay, I'm going to go through a different set of windows. I'm going to start from the beginning here. That is at the beginning. Okay, let's say that I'm coming up to this house here with these Anderson windows. Okay, so Anderson's a little bit different. I'm going to go through the Anderson pitch, but it's going to be a little bit complicated for you guys just because, and you don't have to do this right away. Like window problems are fine to just bring up there, but I just want to show you what I would do with an Anderson window. So knock, knock, knock. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Paul Duffy. Mr. Jones. Yes, I am. What's up? Well, hi, Mr. Jones. I'm with Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work down the street for one of your neighbors, but the reason why I stopped by is because I noticed that you're a loyal Anderson customer, sir. I have to ask you, how long have you lived in the home? Oh, we just moved in a year or so ago, so not that long. Okay, sir. Well, congratulations on the beautiful home here. I mean, congratulations on the windows too. I mean, to have Anderson windows, even though they're a bit older, like these ones here, original, to have Anderson windows, you're already like a step in the right direction. That being said, these are the original windows, right? I mean, I guess so, man. Honestly, I'm not sure. Okay, well, the reason why I ask you, sir, it looks like the rest of the neighborhood has similar windows to this. It is an Anderson neighborhood. That being said, these windows hold up for a long time, but these are about 40 years old now. And so you're going to start to experience issues over time. That being said, I'm sure you've noticed here, sir, that your windows are starting to experience a lot of fading issues in the material. You notice how they're all like kind of like light gray and they're supposed to be darker gray. Yeah, I mean, I definitely noticed that, and whatnot. I mean, they're definitely old. They're definitely old. Like you said, I mean, if they're original here, then the house was built 40, 45 years ago. So yes, sir. And I mean, the fading here is not like that big of an inherent problem. Obviously, cosmetically, it's not pleasing. It doesn't look fantastic. but it's not going to cause any other major problems in the home. That being said, it did look like the weather stripping was starting to come out of the window right here, which I'm guessing that started before you moved in, sir. Yeah, I mean, definitely before I moved in, the inspector pointed it out. But you guys warranty stuff like that? Well, we do, sir, but Anderson back then, they only warranted that stuff for about 10 years. That being said, these are way above any warranty in the industry. That's why they're experiencing the issues here that are going to lead to a lack of energy efficiency. Now, my guess is, sir, just judging by these problems, you're experiencing a little bit of drafts or some hot and cold spots at the very least, like right around your windows. Yeah, I guess I am. It's not too bad, though. Definitely not too bad. Okay, sir. I'm surprised that it's not too bad, honestly, because I noticed the rotting frames here as well. That looks like it's been going on for a long time. Unfortunately, most replacement companies don't replace frames like that. They just put new windows in the rotted frames. It's silly, right? Yeah, it definitely sounds silly. Okay, sir. Well, may I make a suggestion? We'd have one of our phone come out, see if we can do what needs to be done here, find out what you'd like, and if we can't be a service to you, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. Right? Now, I might say things like, sir, because you're an Anderson customer, we'd have a foreman come out just to check the windows out for you, to test them for you. And that can be extremely helpful to introduce it because they are an Anderson customer. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, I go with the windows and it's this window instead of that one. The problems aren't as severe. They still exist, but let's say that there's extreme resistance from the customer right in the beginning. So I'm going to focus on inspection now. Knock, knock, knock. Yeah, what is it? Well, good afternoon, sir. My name is Paul Duffy. You Mr. Jones? Yeah, why? Who's asking? Well, again, sir, my name is Paul Duffy. I'm with Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work for Mrs. Smith down the street on 123 Main Street. And I walked up, I noticed that you were an Anderson customer. How long have you lived in the home, sir? Yeah, we had it built. Well, what's up? I mean, we're not going to do our windows over right now. I can tell you that right now. So you can just leave if you think that we're going to do our windows. No, sir, I would never walk up thinking that. That being said, like you said, they are original to the home. My guess is what, about 45 years old? Yeah, we had the house built 45 years ago. They've held up great company, fantastic, but we're just not going to do the windows right now. Definitely not top of our priority list. No doubt, sir. And I appreciate you saying that about our company. I'm glad that you've enjoyed the windows up to this point. That being said, I did want to point out a couple of things before I left. First of all, Anderson Windows is, Renewal by Anderson is the start to finish window replacement division of Anderson Windows. So the best company to take a look at these windows would be a representative like myself coming from Renewal by Anderson. Now, you might have noticed, sir, that there was some fading going on around the windows. That's going to happen because of sun damage. That's what's causing that, sir. So how long has that been going on here? I don't know. I mean, it started a long time ago, but they've been like that for years. And so it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, no doubt. So, I mean, it is just fading on the windows, but you can also see that the sun is really affecting these windows. That's why you see some rotting on the inside of the window here. I can notice the bottom one here because of the moisture that builds on the inside of the windows. Now, that's had been going on for at least a couple of years. Yeah. It's probably been going on for 20 years, but I just wipe it up. It's not that big of an issue. The mold's not that bad. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. We're good on doing windows right now. Well, sir, all right. Now, before I go, sir, just want to ask you one or two more questions. These are all crank out windows, right? These are all case windows. Yeah, they are. Okay. Well, a lot of crank out windows back in the day, sir, they have issues with their cranks. They start to break off. Some of them will become more difficult to open and close. So how many windows do you have that are like that? None. They're all great. They're all fine. It's just, these little issues or whatever. Nothing for us to deal with right now. Okay, sir. Well, I'm just going to make a suggestion, sir. What I would do is have a representative from Anderson specifically come out and just test the windows for you. Just check them out and inspect the windows to see if they're having any other major structural problems. And if they're not, then fine. But if they are, then we'll just have somebody come out, take a look at your windows and leave you with a free quote. That being said, sir, it only takes a second. Does that sound helpful? Not right now, man. Like I said, I'm having some medical issues. I got to go in for a procedure. My wife's kind of freaking out. We're not going to put any money into the house right now. So there's no reason for us to do this right now. I'm sorry to hear about that procedure, sir. I hope that everything goes okay. You all right? Yeah. It's a hard procedure, but I'll be fine. My wife's just freaking out. Everything will be okay. Okay, sir. Well, look, I don't want to take up much more of your time. I appreciate you being so kind to me today. That being said, the whole goal of the visit when we come out is just to go over your options. It's to answer any questions for you and just to check the windows out for you. And then the quote that we leave you with is good for a full year. So you don't even have to deal with this right now. You just have the information available for the future. That being said, I have your last name here as Jones. What's your first? Okay, so that's the way that it would sound if you're getting a really rough customer and you're focusing on inspection. Okay, now look, I know this is a lot. I'm going to go through the way to simplify this at the end of this, which will be in about 10 minutes. We're going to start our close, like our closing of the window problems, and then I'm going to give you guys some more resources to look at. And again, I'm willing to get on and role play this out with anybody during the weekend. If you want to come in early on Monday, then just let me know. If you're watching this, just shoot me a text and say, hey, I think I need a couple extra hours on Monday, and I'd be happy to partner you up with somebody or myself. So we'll get that done after this. Oh, the lights went off because I have been stagnant back here. 1 second. It's our haunted building. Sam, what did you just think when the lights went off? Did you notice?
Yeah. I was actually surprised they went out because you're usually moving all over the place.
Yeah, well, the sensor doesn't hit the back of the room back here.
Oh.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right,
It's just I have to walk out. It actually kind of sucks because you can easily walk into a bunch of stuff and knock stuff over because it's pitch black when it happens, you know?
Yeah, and I ain't got no windows in there.
Mhm. Yep, window company with no windows. So I'm going to do this window now. This window has some extreme problems on it. So I'm going to focus on, these are new homeowners. They just moved in and they just had somebody replace these windows, or maybe they did them themselves. So we're going to focus on that. This one will always be a heavy window problem, conversation because of how many issues that this window has. All right, so I knock on the door. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Paul Duffy, Mr. Jones. Yes, I am. Great, Mr. Jones. I'm with Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work for your neighbor, Mr. Smith, over on 123 Main Street. The reason why I'm out here, though, is because I noticed that it looked like you had started to do some of the windows here. How long ago did you move into the home, sir? Well, we just moved in like 6 months ago. And, yeah, I mean, I started doing the windows myself with a buddy, but I mean, as you can see, it didn't go extremely well. So we are going to have somebody come out to just kind of fix them up and then, figure it out from there and whatnot. Okay, so yeah, definitely. I mean, I did notice there were some problems here. Installing Windows not easy, right? I guess everybody, learns some way. That being said, how long ago did you put these in the home? Just a couple weeks ago. Luckily, we only got a couple done, and then I said, this is not for me. I'm not going to do it anymore and whatnot. Well, that's good, sir. Then that doesn't cost you a ton of money there. That being said, sir, the thing I want to point out here before I go, just so you know, before you have somebody come out and fix these windows, you're putting those windows into a rotting frame. Now, I know that you probably saw something online like, it's an insert window, you can install it easily, stuff like that. But I would never advise somebody put a window like that into a rotted frame like that. It's just going to cause you more issues in the future. It might temporarily make your windows a little bit more energy efficient, but over time, it's not going to make them any better at all. That being said, so I don't mean to pick on you at all. I know you said you installed these yourself, but I'm sure you noticed that there's warping on the bottom of the window there. Yeah, I noticed it definitely, man. Trust me, I noticed. Okay, that's going to happen, sir, because this space is just not big enough for that window. The house is probably still settling around it, and so you start to see the bending and warping in the window there. And I know, like you said, I don't have to explain all the issues with the windows here to you, but they're vinyl insert windows, sir. They're taking up a lot of glass space. You're losing a lot here. Honestly, something like this is going to cost you significant home value because people are going to look at this, even when it's fixed, sir, and they're going to say, this job isn't done well. So even if you have somebody come out and fix it, sir, I'm not certain that it's going to fix the overall problem. That being said, may I make a suggestion, sir? Yeah, I mean, you can make a suggestion, fine. What I would do, sir, is just have one of our people come out, one of our foremen, and just so they can check it out for you and inspect it for you, to see, where the job might have went wrong and just to see what you can do. And if we can't be a service to you, then that's fine. We'll just recommend someone else who can. But if we could help you, sir, which I'm confident that we could, then we'd simply leave you with the free price quotes. That way, when you're ready down the line, at least you'd have the information set aside. That being said, sir, I'm sure that with given all the issues here, that sounds helpful. Look, it would, but we just dumped all this money into the windows. I really don't. The last thing I want to do is dump more money into the windows. That being said, we'll call you if we need help or anything like that. No, sir, and I definitely would encourage you to not dump more money into these windows. That's kind of the point, is you're going to end up dumping a lot more if you continue to go down the road that you're continuing down now. Now, do you have you purchased all the windows to put in the home? We were just starting with 3 or 4, so I mean, it's not that bad, but yeah, we had purchased the 3 or 4 of them. Okay, well, my suggestion is so that you try to return those windows and just have somebody come out and go over your options, answer your questions, and leave you with a quote that's good for a year. So then at least you have the information set aside, and then you can decide, sir, after you have somebody else look at it, whether or not you might want to do the windows in the future. That being said, sir, I have your last name here as Jones. What's your first? Okay, so that would be an example of the conversation there. Sam, any questions right now?
None from me.
Okay, cool. Well, you're the only one on the Zoom meeting, so if there's none from you, that means there's none from anybody.
Well, we have 2 participants.
What, me and you?
Yep.
You scared me there for a second. I'm like, oh, who did I miss? So I know that it's a complicated conversation, and especially like, when we're going through like rapid fire, a bunch of different conversations here, it can be complicated and whatnot. The last thing that I want is for it to sound super complicated, because it doesn't need to be, especially in the beginning. It's not something that needs to be insane. You want to pick out basic problems in the beginning. That's it. So we're going to go through the beginning stages of the conversation and how to make this as basic and simple as possible. And we'll call this part the basic conversation. What is the expectation? Not even day 1, but week, I'd say 1 through 3. Okay. What do you want to focus on week 1 through 3, I'd say, before you start to get more experience with the window problems? Okay. Ask questions and point out what you see. Try to point out 3 problems at every door. Don't stick in the window convo if it's not going well. What I mean by that is that some people, even when the customer's like, nope, they're fine, or the customer's like, yeah, I guess there's some problems, but I'm not really interested right now, they just keep at the window problem conversation. The issue with that is that it might seem like, okay, well, I want to get window problems from this guy. And yeah, absolutely, if you can. The issue with that is that the customer is just going to get annoyed. It's not going to serve you at all. And it's just going to make the conversations more and more weird. And it's just going to put you in an uncomfortable spot. There's no reason to do that to yourself. You don't want to find yourself in this ridiculously uncomfortable spot when you don't need to be, So just keep the conversation basic. Worst comes to worst, if you get in a place where you're like, I don't know what to do, I'm screwed, I don't know what to say to this customer anymore. If you find yourself in that spot, not that you should often, but if you do, then just go to the value of the visit. Like, worst comes to worst, default to the value of the visit. That's what I explain to people all the time. And I'm just going to put that in the notes here because it's so important. Default to the value of visit. And the reason why you're doing that is because ultimately that's where you want to end up, right? I mean, goal 1 when you start this, goal 1 is to get past intro, right? Goal 2 is to get over the window problems. Goal 3 is to get through the value of the visit and then finally set the appointment. So if the next natural step is getting through the value of the visit, then just go to the next natural step. What you don't want to do is stick there in the window problems, get no, I'm good, screw off, and then you have to leave the house and you're like, I did everything I could do there. There's nothing I could do. And then all of a sudden you start convincing yourself that, hey, I'm doing everything I can at every door, and it might not be the job for me, or it's just too hard for me, or or even worse than that, I think, well, this is just the way it is. I'm just going to get the basic appointments that are easy to get. Because that doesn't make you any money. It doesn't obviously do well for the company. It's not going to do anything positive for you. So the basic conversation, okay? Let's say that I walk up to a house and let's say that I notice a window problem like, because this is not going to be the average. This is probably going to be the average. A window problem like this, I'm going to knock, 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 knock. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Paul Duffy. Are you Mr. Jones? Hi, Mr. Jones. I'm with Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work for your neighbor, Mrs. Smith, on 123 Main Street. And the reason why I'm out here is because it looked like you're going to be replacing your windows soon, and I may be able to help. That being said, sir, how long have you lived in the home? I've been here for a couple of years. Okay, sir. Well, the reason why I ask is because walking up, it looked like there was some glass impaction of in your windows, which means the warping of the glass. That being said, are all your windows vinyl windows? Yes, they are. Okay, sir. Glass impaction is going to be caused because, again, the warping, which is going to cause a lot of issues with energy efficiency. How many windows do you have that are drafty? I don't know. I mean, they're not that bad. They're probably not great, but they're not that bad. Okay, sir. And most of the time when you see issues like warping here and even the rotting that you see in the frame here, you'll see windows that become hard to open and close. Would you say that that's more of a problem on the front of the home or the back of the home, sir? I mean, I don't know. I guess the front, but it's not that bad. The windows just, I mean, they're not that hard to open and close. Okay, sir. Well, it looks like you know that eventually you're going to have to do something with the windows. May I make a suggestion? Okay. So that is the basic. Sam, that sounds a lot easier than the other ones I did, right?
Yes, very, very easy.
Yeah. That's all you're expected to start. All this crazy shit that I'm going through and whatnot, I'm putting this on YouTube and saying crazy shit. I probably shouldn't try not to swear as much as I can, but all this crazy stuff that I'm going through, with all these, you eventually want to get there. Sure. You eventually want to get to the point where you can pick out any problem. You can have any conversation. You can focus on inspection, focus on this and that. Let's phase that in. The bottom line is it's great to learn all of these things. And I want to get as much of that information to you guys as possible, but you can survive off of that basic conversation. You can thrive off of it. And that's definitely where you want to start. If you start by overcomplicating, you're going to end up in a really bad place. Make sense? That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So let's do this. Okay. We're gonna get off training now. Okay. I'm gonna end this video. Sam, what I'd like to focus on, of course, script and rebuttals come first. Okay. Window problems come second because you're gonna learn that on the road as you go. The way that the rest of training will work out is I'm gonna get on and make another video probably tomorrow night, if not tonight, that just goes through some basic window problems and stuff like that. Just some extra stuff that I'm sure that I missed, that I'll realize that I missed right after we get done here. But don't really rely on that video. If when that comes out, if you want to watch it, give it a watch. If you need help though, this is going to be the video to watch. Like I said, I'll make myself available tomorrow too, if you feel like you need to go through extra training. On Monday, after you guys come in, we'll go through some, window problem practice, some script practice and stuff like that. Then we'll script test and rebuttal test. Then you go on the road. You're going to learn a lot about window problems on the road. That's where you're going to learn about the bulk of the window problem stuff. And then probably a week after that, we'll sit and do sort of advanced training on window problems, which is all of this stuff that we've gone over now. But we'll wait till you're a week or two into the job. We'll wait until you've gotten used to writing leads off of the plan A way. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sam, and anybody else watching this later on. Thank you very much. I will talk to you soon.